There have been some points leaked from chapter approved, so let's talk about how this news will impact on the Blood Angels. The short version is, it's all good news. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the battlefield. Today brings us some points leaks from the new chapter approved, where across the board the Blood Angels have received a lot of points drops, and there's some good news regarding Death Company Intercessors. So let's take a look at what we've got. Now annoyingly, the page that has been shared doesn't contain all of the points for every unit in the Blood Angels, but it does cover the elites, special characters and the heavy support, which is pretty helpful all in all, because aside from the Librarian Dreadnought, I believe that that's all of the unique Blood Angels units. I'll say the biggest news first, which is that there is a points cost listed for Death Company Intercessors on the elite slot, and the even better news is that the points cost for them is 18 points. This is great for two reasons. Firstly, it makes it extremely likely that you're not going to have to pay command points to unlock the unit. It means that they're almost certainly their own datasheet, so you don't just have to buy a regular squad of intercessors and then pay a command point or two per unit to make them into Death Company. This is really good, because command points can be used for all sorts of very useful things, particularly in Blood Angels, such as getting our very fighty melee units fighting twice for 3 command points, or being used to get those 3d6-inch charges out of Deep Strike. Secondly, I'm pleasantly surprised by the points cost. 18 points is a very nicely priced unit. Intercessors are already pretty strong as Blood Angels because they have a lot of attacks, are decently durable, decent shooting, and they profit a lot from the Blood Angels +1 to wounds chapter tactic on the charge, gaining an additional attack on the charge for Black Rage, and more importantly a 6+ Feel No Pain is absolutely phenomenal value for 1 additional point. The 6+ Feel No Pain, as I mentioned in the last video, is really strong on 2 wounds models. It will make them 20% more durable against damage 1 weapons and 33% more against a barrage of flat damage 2 weapons, which are the bane of the existence of the Intercessors. The extra attack on the charge also means that they're exceptionally strong in the fight phase, particularly if they happen to be in Assault Doctrine, and get a further attack from that too. On a point per point basis, these guys are massively better than Intercessors. The obvious downside that they have though is that they don't fill a troops slot, so won't be particularly useful for getting you more command points. So there's certainly going to be a decent role for using regular Intercessors in that role anyway. Plus we don't really know any of the other advantages and disadvantages that might be listed on the datasheet, so we'll have to wait for Blood of Baal to be unveiled to see all of that. Just on the face of it though, if we are looking at comparing Intercessors for 17 points and Death Company Intercessors for 18 points, in my opinion there really is no contest. I'd take the Death Company ones every time if I was just literally looking for a unit that can be more durable and deal more damage. So I'd say that that's the biggest thing to take away from these leaks so far. The next thing to take away is that a whole bunch of our named characters got a massive points drop. A huge amount of the value of Blood Angels lists are in their incredibly fighty characters that also lend very good combat buffs to the specialist close combat units, so having a big points drop in the HQ department is most certainly a good thing. In particular, the Sanguinius has received an incredibly nice points drop, going from 150 points to 130 points. He is now incredibly good value for what he brings to the table. He's got a very solid stat line that synergizes well with the +1 to wound on the charge bonus, but most importantly for him is that massive aura of extra attacks that he brings. He gets an extra attack when he's near himself, and so do any nasty Death Company, Vanguard veterans or Sanguinary Guard. So if you can both exploit his very nasty melee profile and leverage that bonus attack on a big fighter unit nearby, then you're going to be in for a good time. He was already a fairly decent utility piece at 150, and he's only going to get better at 130, plus the additional benefits like that combat doctrine that Blood of Baal is going to bring to us. Asterath and Corbulo remain the same points cost, as does Captain Tycho. Mephiston, however, has dropped 15 points, which is a pretty powerful boost, particularly considering when he's changed to his Primaris form, that he's gained an extra wound and an extra attack. Mephiston really is a solid all-rounder, able to hand out 2 incredibly powerful psychic buffs, as well as being a toughness 5, strength 10 melee monster with a 2-up save and a 5-up feel no pain. I'll most certainly be doing a review of him at some stage, but I'd like to get the rest of the details from Blood of Baal to ensure that we have the full picture. Even with this points cost and his improved datasheet alone, he's going to be far more worth running than before though, and he was already good. Dante has also seen a whopping points drop down to 150 from 175. Like the rest of these chaps, he's a very decently fighty character, but the main advantage of him is that you get that very nice chapter master bonus without having to pay command points for it, like the Space Marines in the regular book do. From the Flesh Tearers, Gabriel Seth has also dropped a huge 25 points. He's now 110 from 135. As Games Workshop have told us, the Flesh Tearers are getting their own expanded arsenal of options in the new Blood of Baal book, including an augmented chapter tactic where 6s get an extra hit of AP, and their own warlord traits and relics. As he is at 110 points, Seth is an absolutely phenomenal value character for his points. He gets those chapter master rerolls that Dante does, and compared with Dante, he has much improved melee with a ×2 strength chainsword Blood Reaver, which also has flat 3 damage. I could certainly see him buffing a lot of Death Company Intercessors moving up the board, laying down some very accurate shooting before getting stuck in with his big chainsword. The Elite section has also seen some notable buffs. Both Death Company and Sanguinary Guard have dropped in points. The Death Company have come down 2 to base 15, and Jump Pack Death Company are now 18 points. This will most certainly help them out in addition to the other buffs. They're still most certainly going to be Glass Hammers, but between this points drop, the Blood Angels unique doctrine, and the new introduction of Shock Assault, which has only been out a few months, one 18-point Death Company with a chainsword will be putting out a frankly hilarious 6 attacks on the charge. Just for clarification, that's 2 attacks base profile, 1 for the chainsword, 1 for Shock Assault, 1 for the Blood Angels doctrine, and 1 for Black Rage. Very nasty indeed, particularly if they're going to be -1 in Assault Doctrine and +1 to Wound. The Sanguinary Guard have come down 3 points via their Angelus bolt guns, dropping from 3 points to 3. This means that each Sanguinary Guard will be 32 points, unless there's any weird changes to their Oncarmine sword, which I'll admit I don't have access to on the leaked slides that I'm looking at. I'd be surprised if it's gone up in points, so 32 points for essentially flying Terminators with decent war gear sounds pretty damn good to me. It certainly seems that all of the other Space Marine units that saw drops in the main codex have come down in line with the changes in that book. For example, Reavers are down to 16 points as they are in the main codex. I'm sure they'll do far better in Blood Angels than they will in most armies, but when they're competing against Death Company, Sanguinary Guard and Vanguard vets, the poor Reavers are going to have a bit of a tough time. The Sanguinary Ancient is now 55 points, plus the cost of the Oncarmine Sword, which as I said I'm still not sure about. If it's unchanged, he's now 62 points overall. This is actually really quite a massive drop. He was 79 before, and now is 62. Blood Angels Sanguinary Ancients function essentially like lieutenants in the fight phase, so you can reroll wound rolls of 1 for Blood Angels units within 6 inches. Blood Angels are going to do most of their damage output in the fight phase, so this can still be a very decent buff. Essentially, he's a lieutenant with a free jump pack, free 2-up save, free damage 3 power sword, but the limitation that he can't buff shooting. Honestly, he seems like a very decent pick at 62 points. I could easily see him dropping in to support some jump pack Death Company or Sanguinary Guard. The Furioso Dreadnought and the Death Company Dreadnought both got a 10 points reduction. So put your basic Furioso on 100 points after war gear, again presuming there are no changes to the points cost of their melee weapons. I'm not 100% convinced whether or not that'll be enough to get them to see play. It's just not such a great combination being very slow and limited to melee, even if that melee is very, very good. There are a few other minor points drops here and there for supporting characters. The Terminator Ancient went down in points by quite a decent 21 points. He got quite a big points drop, down to 87 points plus war gear, so he could be 89 points if you just gave him a Stormbolter. Again, as Blood Angels are a bit fancy with their different banners, this one gives you reroll to hits in the fight phase, so if you combined him with a Sanguinary Ancient, you could have an entire squad of Death Company, for example, rerolling all hits in the fight phase and rerolling all ones to wound. If you just decided to take stock Death Company with chainswords and plop them next to these guys, a squad of 15 Death Company in the Assault Doctrine would get a hilarious 90 attacks on the charge, hitting on 3s with 4 rerolls, and their wound rolls would be +1 to wound and reroll 1s to wound. If they targeted a bunch of Orc boys like that, they would on average get a massive 62 wounds through, which is frankly more than they need. But you are going to lose some to Overwatch and in the following turns. But it just goes to show that you can absolutely buff these Blood Angels assault units to ludicrous damage potentials for quite cheap now. Finally, the Apothecaries also went down. Primaris Apothecary is now 60 points in line with the main Space Marine Codex, and the Sanguinary Novitiate is down 5 points just to 50 points now. One thing I did note is that the Baal Predator hasn't dropped in points, which is a bit of a shame as it doesn't really see that much play at the moment. It is perfectly possible the Flamestorm Cannon might have seen a drop though, but I'm afraid I don't have access to that information at the moment. There's a whole host of decent buffs to the Blood Angels, which I'm very pleased to see, as for a long time now they've been one of the weakest armies in the game, and have only really been used as scouts and smash captains on any sort of competitive level. These points cost plus the new doctrine means they're going to hit absolutely ferociously when they reach close combat, which is exactly as it should be, as Blood Angels are all about that sort of thing. I'll most certainly be covering Blood of Baal and reviewing Primaris Mephiston over the next few days, and I'm hoping to have a look through all of the Blood Angels' unique units on a unit by unit level as well. So if any of that interests you, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, and I'll see you guys in the next video.